Hello watchers, today we will be taking a look at ReaEQ, the Reaper internal stock plugin for equalization, and it is a highly requested video actually. A lot of people seem to struggle with this plugin, although it's actually quite easy and fairly straightforward. For all the visually impaired people here, I won't be routing my screen reader NVDA into this video this time, because the plugin UI is really straightforward. I will go through the entire UI and all the features and fields where you can input stuff and select stuff step by step, like in tab order. You can follow along as well without having my speech feedback, and it will still be useful. Let's go. I have an empty Reaper project in front of me, and the first thing that I need to do is create a test track and record some snippets so that we can demonstrate what we're doing here. Let's create a test track first, and let's record something here. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. Let's play it. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. There we go. Now what we do is we press F for the FX menu with your Osara key map, and in there we don't have any FX applied yet, so we got the search field open and we are typing ReaEQ, which is written ReaEQ, and in the list with Shift Tab we find ReaEQ by Kokos, which is the developer of Reaper. Let's instantiate that, and there we go. So now we've got ReaEQ instantiated, and the great thing is that we usually don't need more instances of ReaEQ because we can have as many bands as we need within ReaEQ. That is really awesome, really huge. So let's tab through it. The first thing that we see after tabbing through the usual Reaper stuff like the preset combo box and everything actually is the frequency selector, which you can toggle by using the up and down arrow keys. Tabbing once more is an input box, which is the one that you usually will use for most situations. If you already know what you're doing, then you have specific frequencies in mind and you just answer it there. That's basically the way to go. But these two fields are really interesting and important here. Afterwards, you got the combo box with the type of the equalizer that you want to apply, and we will go through all the options available here in the explanation of those in just a sec. Tab once more and you will have the gain, which is by default set to 0. Tab once more and you've got the input box instead of the slider. Afterwards you've got the bandwidth. We will get to this later as well. And afterwards you've got the enabled and disabled. You can basically enable and disable the band here. If you just quickly want to disable a band, then just uncheck this checkbox and you're good to go. Log scale automated frequencies is a checkbox that I've never used before. I'm not entirely sure what it does actually. And afterwards we got the bands tab selection field where you can use left and right arrow keys to select and go through the bands. By default, ReaEQ loads with 4 bands already predefined, and you can basically remove the ones that you don't need by pressing tabs 2 more times and hit remove band, and we'll get rid of the band. Now that we know how the UI looks like, because that's basically all we need to know about the UI, let's go through all the available types of bands that ReaEQ can actually use and explain and demonstrate them. So we go back to the type combo box and we go to the very first entry in the list. The first entry within the type combo box is low shelf, and a shelf basically is a kind of filter, but where a filter basically cuts off every single frequency under or above a certain frequency limit. A shelf will not cut them off immediately, but lower the frequencies by a certain amount above or below the shelf frequency that we specify. And the higher or the lower the frequency gets, the more gain will be applied to the frequencies, and the steeper the curve will get. Let's demonstrate this real quick with our example track. Let's say, for example, that we want a shelf at a frequency of 1000 Hertz. And the thing that we need to enter here is the amount of gain that we want to apply. And for a more drastic effect that is immediately audible, we will just enter minus 30 dB as gain in the gain input field. Let's play. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. There we go. So everything from 1000 Hertz and below is shelved. So it's getting more quiet, but the lower it gets, the even quieter it gets. So 1000 Hertz will be more audible than, for example, 100 Hertz, which is still there. It's not cut off entirely, but it's really, really, really quiet, depending on the gain that we applied. And we applied a really huge gain with minus 30 dB. We can probably demonstrate this better by moving the band around a bit. And what we now do is we go not into the frequency input box, but into the frequency input slider and play the track. And then we just sweep through the frequencies by using the up and down arrow keys for demonstration purposes. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording. So now we're at 12,848 Hertz here. And you can still hear me talking. It's just really, really quiet. And that's the difference to a filter, which would cut the frequencies down and basically remove them entirely. But the shelf just lowers the volume, basically. And the higher we go, the steeper the curve will get. And thus, the speech will get quieter and quieter. Now we're at 22,000 Hertz, and I'm still audible, but it's just getting even more quiet. Now we're at 24,000, which is the upmost value that you can have, and I'm just so quiet here. And by going down again, I will get louder again. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. There we go. That's how shelves work. Let's go to the next type, which is a high shelf. We can just quickly demonstrate this, but it's basically doing the same thing, except this time everything above the frequency that we choose will be shelved. Let's demonstrate this by starting at the lowest possible value, which is 20 Hertz. And it's doing the exact same opposite than before. It's really, really quiet now, because everything above 20 Hertz is shelved. Let's sweep upwards. On a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. There we go. This is a high shelf. Let's go further. This is a band. With a band, you can specify specific frequencies which you want to boost. Let's, for example, take a frequency. Let's take 2500 in this case. And we will boost this by 20 dB, which is probably gonna get a bit louder. So let's see what it does. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. So that is what the band does. It boosts a frequency of 2500 Hertz. But not just that. And there we go and have the band width parameter applied here as well. Because it's not just boosting the exact same frequency of 2500, but it's boosting the range of the entire band. And the band width determines how huge the band actually is. By default, the range is set to 2.0. And by lowering that, we can actually narrow the bandwidth, and thus less frequencies will be boosted. We can just quickly demonstrate this. Let's go over to the bandwidth, which is set to 2.0 by default. Let's play this. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. I narrowed this test recording so that to 0.01 on a real track. This is and now to 0.07, ReaEQ and it's on a real track. Just This is
as you can hear,
so that we can
a really specific frequency which is now boosted, and it's really annoying.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ
and the higher we go
on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate
the more frequencies get boosted,
on
which is definitely audible.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so
now
that
it's
we
at
can
4.0, which is the
on a
highest amount that you can have, and it basically covers the entire upper range of the voice signal. We can do the opposite thing though as well. We can apply a negative gain of minus 20 dB, and it will basically lower the gain of the entire band that we've selected.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ.
Really broad band. Let's narrow it down.
Track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track.
Now, at its lowest,
so that we can
it's really well audible because it just cut out a really limited frequency
so
around 2500 Hertz.
On a real track.
Okay, let's continue. The next thing will be a low pass. And a low pass filter is something that you have to work quite often with, just like with the high pass filter. And it's basically like a shelf, but a really more like an intense version of that, a really strict version. You just specify a frequency and everything below this frequency is cut. And the gain is actually not applied here. It just removes everything above or below a certain frequency. And in this specific case, a low pass means that everything below the frequency passes and everything above gets cut. Let's just quickly demonstrate this by sweeping again through the different frequencies. Let's start with 2500. Everything below will be passed.
This is a test recording so that we can,
as you can hear,
ReaEQ.
This is just the lower frequencies.
Track.
Let's lower them even further.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track.
And this is just the range of 117 Hertz. Everything above is just cut. Let's move up.
On a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate.
And now that we're at 24,000, everything will
track.
pass. Next then should be high pass filter. It's the totally opposite. Let's just quickly hit play and sweep through the frequencies. We are at 24,000, it's actually playing, but high pass means that everything above 24,000 will pass, and there's nothing above 24,000, so let's sweep down. Here, at 16,340, we're first able to actually hear something. So that's the first point where my microphone actually picked up some information. About 16,500 Hertz, something about that, are the first noises that the mic picked up. Let's sweep further down. This is 7,500. Interestingly. Almost not audible.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can
now everything is audible again. We're at 20 Hertz minimum frequency.
Track.
Next thing is all pass, and I'm pretty unsure what this does. I think it's just what it says. It would make everything pass here. I think this might be an alternative to hitting enable, disable here, but I'm not entirely sure. I basically don't use this, and by testing it myself right now, it seems like sweeping through the frequency doesn't do anything here. So it seems like this seems to be a toggle to basically let everything pass. We've got a notch, which is kind of interesting because this allows us to specify a band which just gets removed. It basically creates a notch or window within the frequency range of the signal and just gets rid of everything within the size of the band. Like the entire bandwidth just gets removed. Let's demonstrate this real quick. We have a default bandwidth of 2. We have got a notch and we sweep through the frequencies and see what happens.
This is a test recording
20,
so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a
116.
track.
It's audible already,
test
right?
recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ
296
on a real track.
We getting rid of the midths here. We definitely have bass, we have heights as well, but the midths are missing.
Test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on
Midths are getting in again, but heights are missing, right? We had 1024 hertz.
ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that
2738
on a real track.
We're getting the heights back.
So that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track.
And above 20,000 hertz, no changes are immediately audible because the microphone wasn't able to pick up anything above 20,000 hertz, obviously. The next entry within the list is band pass, which is the total opposite of a notch. So you're basically selecting a band and only the band will pass the filter. Which is great, because now we can go through the list, and that's basically something that I'd really recommend you if you're surgically trying to EQ something and you know that there's a specific frequency which feels like it's disturbing you, it's like distracting you from the actual sound of the instrument or something like that, then pull up a band pass and just slowly sweep through the frequency range and try to identify which frequency is the one that actually messes you up. So we would do that the exact same way here as well. Let's just hit play. And right now we've got a band pass at 24,000. And as you can hear, some noises are still audible because the bandpass really works again with the bandwidth and everything, but it will still be useful.
So that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a.
We are now at 431 hertz. Let's just quickly specify the bandwidth and narrow it down a bit.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate.
We are now at a bandwidth of 1. Let's lower it further.
This is a test recording.
Let's lower it to 0.07. And now the range is really, really small, which you can definitely hear. It's really, really quiet as well. Let's raise the bandwidth again.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ.
1 is actually a quite nice value. Let's sweep a bit further here.
This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track. This is a test recording so that we can demonstrate ReaEQ on a real track.
So, as we find out, this is 238 hertz, and it's actually pretty understandable, right?
This is a test recording so that we
559, 1500. So this is band pass. You basically can select a band and only this band will pass, everything else will get filtered. The next thing would be a parallel band pass, which is doing some similar thing. It's a band pass, but it's working a bit differently in terms of how it actually applies the bandpass internally. So sometimes the results can differ a bit. It really depends on which sound you like better. Same with the next thing, which is band and alt in brackets, which is an alternative algorithm for applying a band. We also get band alternative 2, which are all doing the same thing, letting you select a band which you can increase or decrease the gain on, but it's always using a different algorithm, so the bandwidth parameter and the gain will be applied differently. So it's basically just a matter of going through the thing, experimenting and checking out which of the band algorithms you like the most and works best for your specific situation. And that's already it. That's all you can do with the ReaEQ. The great flexibility comes from the functionality that you can add as many bands into ReaEQ as you like. It won't stop working. It won't apply any limits here. You can have as many bands as you want, really. And it won't slow down even a bit in comparison to the really, really great EQs like Fab Filters EQ, which is one of the mostly used things that are currently on the market, one of the most professional ones. ReaEQ is really, really smart. It's really easy to use, really. It's just a matter of experimenting and getting used to the different terms applied here. And it's for free, and it's included in every REAPER version, no matter if you're using the trial version, if you're using the business version, or the professional or personal license. Doesn't matter, ReaEQ comes with REAPER and it's always free. So get used to it, it's really useful. And that was my little demonstration video of ReaEQ. I hope you find it useful. If you've got any other questions about ReaEQ or any other plugin that you want to see me do a demonstration video or tutorial video about, let me know in the comment section below this video. If you found this video useful and like what I'm doing, then please subscribe to the channel and leave a like for this video. See you next time. Bye bye. Take care.